Story. You know, 1 week ago tonight, our morning temperatures were down in the mid-30s and there was still a decent amount of snow and ice on the ground. Here on The Story, we talked about the closing of the emergency shelters for the homeless. In my opinion, and in a lot of yours, they closed way too early. And as we've looked into the issues surrounding those shelters, it's become one more example of the dysfunction of Oregon's largest county based on population. And that is our big story tonight. Multnomah County opened 12 emergency shelters to help homeless people survive the snow and ice storm. Then on Wednesday, January 17th, they were closed. County Chair Jessica Vega-Peterson and Chief Operating Officer Serena Cruz made the decision. They pointed to their metrics, which help inform whether to open the shelters or not. The metrics include when the forecasted temperatures will hit 25 degrees or lower, or if temperatures are forecast to be 32 degrees with an inch of rain overnight. The thresholds must continue for at least 4 hours and happen between 8 p.m. and 7 a.m. If those metrics are hit, the shelters open. If not, they close. Those county leaders relied on a forecast that expected temperatures to hit 40 degrees on Wednesday afternoon, and because of that, they ordered the shelters closed Wednesday morning. However, the weather did not change, and it stayed frigid. But county leaders said it was already too late to open again, and more than 1,000 people were forced out into the frozen streets. One of the many people furious about that decision to close early is Multnomah County Commissioner Sharon Myron. She's also an emergency room doctor. She says she was not consulted before the decision was made. I had a chance to talk with her about that, and since we love to take deep dives here on The Story and bring you along, here's an extended clip from our conversation about the decision to close the shelters and what it says about the county's lack of competence in this area.
I thought it was abhorrent.
How come?
I mean, for so many reasons. The bottom line is just from a common sense human standpoint of thinking about people who are most vulnerable in our community, who are getting respite and warmth and shelter from the storm, and you're basically kicking them out into the ice and cold, and that, to me, that just shocks my conscience.
Yeah. Well, and we heard, that some of the rationale was, well, we have these metrics, but it's not like God came down from heaven and delivered these on stone tablets.
No.
These are guidelines that are set up by the county.
By the ones deciding to close the shelters because of the metrics. I mean, it's sort of this circular argument. In my view, the standards themselves need to be reevaluated, and I've actually expressed this to county leadership for years. And then even if the standards aren't met, then we need to use discretionary factors, like literally put a foot outside the door and recognize that this is not habitable weather, and then make a decision and adjust based on that.
Do you think that'll change?
I hope so. I have to say, we've seen situations of more and more people dying on our streets even without the extreme weather, with more and more unprecedented amounts of money, and been calling for, can we do things to stop people from dying on our streets? Haven't seen that change. So trying really hard. Hopefully there'll be enough of a public outcry to make some things happen. Okay. And I think one thing there, it's important to note, a lot of people don't know who makes these decisions, how they're made. The decisions are made by the county chair with the county chief operating officer, who is Serena Cruz. So they're the ones that determine the standards, that make the decisions whether to stay open or close, and that is exclusively in their purview. And they do not. I did not know, for example, before the shelters were closed, that they were going to be closed. So
that's not something they share as far as the decision making.
This is not something shared in terms of decision making.
Interesting. And we just saw in Willamette Week that you all had commissioned an outside
review? Well, that's another thing. That had never been shared with commissioners. I didn't even know that happened. So there's this stuff that happens that kind of the chair takes over and is doing behind these closed doors with folks at the city. And I honestly think what the analysis said, it said it best when I was reading some of it. It said it was, I think, disjointed, ineffective, and a communications black hole. I think those are the key points they made, and that's what it is. And thank heavens, the one silver lining from this is that it's being exposed so that people can be outraged and call for change, and maybe the people in charge will hear that.
Yeah. Wow. I mean, it's just hard to believe.
It's
until you look at the results and you go, oh, yeah, okay. It seemed like it wasn't working. Now we know why.
Exactly. I think that's a lot of the stuff is, and before I ran for office, I was thinking, it doesn't seem like it's working, and maybe I can get there and figure some stuff out. And at the county, the chair has the power to do a lot of the work. But I at least saw, I'm like, oh, that's why it's not working. It's pretty clear.
And it's silos and dysfunction.
The reason is it's fragmentation, it's those silos, it's dysfunction, it's churn in leadership. For example, in our health department, we've had I think it's 6 different health department leaders in 7 years, 5 behavioral health directors in 6 years. I mean, that kind of churn, you can't do anything with that kind of leadership void.
Yeah.
So
because people who don't want to change don't have to. They can just wait out the director.
They can just wait it out, and and I think there's been a lot of waiting things out, and also the things that have been in play for a long time, they functioned okay, and were able to fly under the radar while, without any stressors on the system. So you could say, as this house of cards is being built, well, things are okay, it looks fine, I'm not seeing horrible things, but we've had major stressors on our system, like a confluence of crises. So whether it's behavioral health, fentanyl, mental illness, COVID, extreme heat, extreme cold, fires, those stressors, they're kind of like a tornado hitting the house of cards, and it exposes that in fact it's kind of house of cards, and we need to build better.
Well, and I was wondering, why isn't there a citizens corps that's trained up every November, for example, to be ready to help staff these shelters?
So you would wonder that, and you would be very reasonable in wondering why we do not harness the resources of our community.
It's a very giving community.
It's so many people want to help. Yeah. We have the hearts of people who are in this county. I mean, they're so big. In the city of Portland, we just need to give them a place we need to give them the place, the support, the resources, and the organization to do the work they want to do to help. And we just haven't provided any of that infrastructure. That's another area I was talking about at the board meeting that wasn't a board meeting this morning, with someone who came who didn't realize the meeting had been canceled, talking about shelters. But she'd been asking the same question. And she said she had volunteered in the shelters last year. She's like, the lowest hanging fruit would be to reach out to the people who already volunteered in your shelters and say, hey, can you volunteer this year? She's like, no one contacted us. And so we need a robust system of volunteer structure and organization, so we can have the benefit of this really giving community to come, show up, and help out. Yeah. We just need to help do it. Yeah. It's not rocket science.
Well,
or is it?
Sometimes you wonder. Yesterday, County Chair Jessica Vega Peterson and Portland Mayor Ted Wheeler issued a statement on the warming shelters. It touted all the hard work done by all the city and county employees and all the people who were served. And good for you. I know there was a lot of hard work there. They also committed to working together to improve the way they work for the public. Maybe it's just me, but it feels like we've heard that one before a few times. By the way, that clip I just showed you was only part of the discussion I had with Commissioner Myron Monday night. We'll dip back into that conversation, but this time we're going to be focused on the county's approach to mental health and the crisis we see on our streets. Myron says it's so fragmented that she's now asked the governor to step in and help out. We'll get into that Monday night at 6:30. In the meantime, what do you think about what Commissioner Myron had to say about the warming shelter controversy? Anything surprise you? Let us know, will you? Send us an email. The address is thestory@kgw.com or call and leave a voicemail, 503-226-5090.